What's up, everybody? John Arbiter here, and today we are doing a emergency tier list. There has been a couple new recent patches. I'm not the biggest fan of the most recent patches. I already went over that a little bit, but today we are officially going to do the tier list of November and the most recent patch. Let's just get right into it. Let's just start with the easiest one here out of all the gods in the whole game. Gaia is the best god in the game right now, and it's not even close. It's not even close. For how easy she is to play compared to every other god in the game and how rewarding she is, it's just not even, it's not even a game at this point, in my opinion. I think Gaia is way too easy. I think they need to tone down some things. There's a couple other gods that you kind of have a chance maybe going against Gaia, but I just don't think right now Gaia is balanced by any means. I don't even think the implode nerf did much. I still think it's very strong. I think Loki and Thor can do well against Gaia, but that's about it. That's about it. I think every other god in the game just gets spanked by Gaia at this point. Okay, let's talk about Oranos. Actually, let's talk about Raw. We'll talk about Raw next because everyone's talking about Raw. So Raw is very, very strong. I do think Raw is very strong at this point in this patch, especially with the recent buff to chariots and the recent buff to rain. So rain now applies to your own farms, no one else's farms. So that's actually really good. I don't think she's on the same tier as Gaia, though. I just don't. Maybe once the Citadel buff comes in, like the Citadel buff right now, which is minus 25% speed to villagers, doesn't actually work right now. So maybe when that comes in, he'll be on the same tier of Gaia, but I actually don't think so still. So I'm putting Raw and A tier. Someone in my chat said they're going to beat my infant son if I don't put Raw in S tier. Please don't do that. Raw is not S tier. Gaia is an S tier alone, okay? Moving on, we got Oranos. This is going to be kind of quick. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I don't want this video to be too long. Oranos is, I still think very, very strong. Sky Passages are very good still. Yeah, they cost a little bit more resources now. They're like 50 wood and 8 favor. It used to be just 5 favor. So all it is a 3 favor and 50 wood increase. It's really not that big of a deal. I still think Oranos is amazing. I'm going to put Oranos, I think, in A tier behind Raw. I think Oranos can play actually pretty well into Raw, but I think Raw has better matchups overall. I think Oranos can struggle against a lot of Norse players, and maybe even Hades, but I don't know about that. I think Hades is all right, but we'll see. Okay, moving on, we got Kronos. Kronos, I think, is in the same spot around Oranos. I think Kronos is right around, like, I think all Atlanteans right now are very, very strong. I think Kronos can be very, very oppressive in many different matchups. You can do the, what's it called, the kind of crush into 2 town center strat, which I see a lot of Kronos players doing, and it works very, very well. You kind of hinder your opponent's economy, and then you just kind of boom off the back end of it. So I think Kronos is very, very strong right now. I'm going to put Kronos as well into A tier. Moving on, we have Isis. So Isis is another interesting one. If we look at AOM stats, Isis in like certain elos is dominating, like 1600 plus. Isis is a 59% win rate. I think that's crazy. Like Isis is actually doing very, very well. And I think that has a lot to do with the chariot buff. And the Eclipse, I think, got nerfed and buffed. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I think it got nerfed and buffed, right? They like made the units like do less damage, but now they're faster or something. Or like they have less armor, but now they're faster, the minions. So I think Isis is still very, very good actually right now. I think Isis is probably like right around, I think A tier as well. I'm going to put Isis A tier. Maybe like, I think in front of Kronos, like right there. I think Isis is still very strong, especially, like I said, because of the chariot buff. Okay, moving on, we got Set. So because of the recent change to Slingers, and Slingers not being nearly as oppressive anymore, I still think they're actually kind of good. I haven't played enough games against Slingers, but they definitely feel a little bit weaker. By no means, I don't think they're worthless anymore. People are like over-exaggerating. Oh, they're worthless. I still think they're very strong. Like, I've had games where they make Slingers, like, I'm not even making like any archers, and they still do decent against like Cav and other stuff because they still have that 0.5 divine damage. It's not like they got rid of divine damage entirely. It's just cut in half, which I think was needed. They were way too strong in the previous patch. But it definitely is a big hit to Set. So I'm gonna put Set. I think Set right now is kind of in the middle of the pack. I'm gonna put Set in B tier, right in the middle. I'm comfortable putting Set there. All right, moving on, we got Poseidon. So when the game first came out, everyone said Poseidon was terrible, right? And then we had the reverse where it was like Set was amazing, but now I think it's back to the point where Poseidon is, I think, one of the worst gods in the game. I think once people figure out how to deal with very mobile gods, very mobile centaurs, very all this kind of stuff. Centaurs also got nerfed a little bit, but now that people know how to deal with centaur abuse and deal with Hippias, I don't think Poseidon's very good at all. I think there's so many good counters in this game to Poseidon. You have Gaia, which is probably the hardest counter. It's Gaia and Oranos. They completely hard counter Poseidon. And let's pull this up real quick. I want to see if I can pull this up. The stats of Poseidon versus other gods. It's pretty embarrassing. So in 1300 plus, 44% win rate. I think it's even worse. Let's see 0 to 2000. Let's just see what this looks like. Let's see 1400. Yeah, like this is around where the elo I care. 13 to 1400 plus. Look at the win rate for Gaia. That's crazy. I don't know how Oranos is actually. Somebody's winning Oranos. I don't know. Maybe this isn't completely accurate, but all I know is I feel like Gaia and Oranos, and even like Odin, Ra, like all these gods are super good against Poseidon right now. I think Poseidon is so bad. I think Poseidon is so damn bad right now. And in general, Greek is weak. Moving on, we'll do Hades, but I don't think Hades is that good either. I think Hades is probably the best Greek god right now. Maybe. Between Zeus and Hades, I'm not sure. I think I would give the slight advantage to Hades. So I'm put Hades maybe like bottom of B tier. I think he's the best Greek god, but that's not really saying much. You can do your the Cyclops strat kind of got nerfed, right? Like I kind of popularized the Cyclops, I will say, but now it's like they kind of I feel like they over nerfed it, but I don't know. Maybe they're so too strong. I definitely did think they needed like maybe a little bit of a tune-up, but the problem is there's like the Greeks in general now are so weak. So all they did was just nerf the Greeks in this recent patch when they're already super weak compared to these other gods. Like Norse and Atlantean just completely outscale them right now. It's not even close. They're just better. They're just better pantheons. And I think Egyptian as well. I don't think there's like one pantheon where Greeks you like think the Greeks would be good against. I actually don't think there is one. I think they lose to everybody. All right, moving on. We got Zeus. I think Zeus can be good kind of. It's certain matchups maybe like where it's split, but not really. I think Zeus is also really, really weak as well. I think he's really one-dimensional. I don't think you can go Hermes as Zeus anymore. You kind of need to go Athena for the restoration and better hoplites because that's his kind of strength, but he's really one-dimensional. That's all you can really do is like Minotaurs with hoplites. I don't think Centaurs are really viable anymore with Zeus. They're not fast enough. He doesn't get that extra bonus speed like Poseidon gets. So I'm going to put Zeus in C tier. I'm going to put Zeus in C tier. Moving on, we have Odin. So Odin actually got hit with a pretty relatively big nerf. So instead of his units regenerating at 0.5 health a second, they now get 0.25. So it's technically cut in half. I still don't think it impacts that much. I still think Odin is very strong, but it definitely makes it so his units don't heal nearly as fast anymore. I still think Odin is very strong. I think I'm going to put him in A tier. Probably right in front of Kronos. I'll put Odin in front of Kronos, right there. I haven't played enough games against Odin or as Odin in this patch, so I could be wrong about Odin. I'm not too sure where I would want to put him, but I think A tier makes the most sense for me. He was S tier before, but I can't put him on even close to the same tier as Gaia, so I think I'm going to put him in A tier. Moving on, we have Loki. So Loki, I still think is very strong. He got hit with the nerf of the Eyes of the Forest. So Eyes of the Forest no longer applies to buildings anymore. So you can't like spam houses on like wood lines anymore and get that huge line of sight, which I think was pretty stupid. Like you basically got early omniscience for just spamming houses around the map. So I'm glad they patched that out. I still think Eyes of the Forest is very good. Like when you're walking by forest and walking by like gold mines and stuff, you get line of sight for a while, even when you don't even have units there anymore. So that's really good. I'm gonna put Loki. I think he's the third best guy in the game right now. I think it's either between Loki and Ra as the second place. Loki, I think, is very strong in this current patch. Like he didn't really get hit by anything else other than the Eyes of the Forest. I still think his myth unit spawns are crazy. His counter damage is insane. He is still a very, very strong god in this patch. Okay, moving on, we got Freyr. I always say Freyr's comedy club, and that has not changed. I think Freyr is probably still the worst god in the game. It's between Freyr and Poseidon right now. I think Freyr, the 150% debuff is just way too, like, it's too slow. Like, it's technically, I would say overall, this is actually like a nerf because it takes so long for your text to come in. It's so hard. You have to be insanely patient as Freyr to win games. You have to wait for all those techs to come in, and by the time they come in, usually you're at a huge disadvantage because your opponent gets map control, your opponent just is very aggressive. So I just think Freyr has a really, really hard time in nearly all matchups in this game. I'm not a fan of Freyr right now. I think it's 150% debuff right here is a little bit too much. Maybe make it 125 or 100%, because right now this buff he gets doesn't really even like help that much. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, it is 50% off everything, so that's very strong, but it just takes so long for all that stuff to kick in, and that kind of scales throughout the game. You get all your eco ups later, you get all your armory upgrades later, so it's just not very good. It's just not very good at all. I'm confused, too, why it says it has a potent defensive god power that gets more powerful with each age advancement, because that's just basically stating your god power. Like, no other person, like, says that. It's like, oh, Loki has a really strong spy god power that can see across them. Like, I don't know why it does that. I think it's because, like, Freyr just didn't have enough buffs and they kind of just put that in last second or something. I don't know. But yeah, Freyr's kind of comedy club still. I think Freyr's very, very weak. Okay, moving on. We have Thor. So Thor's an interesting one. I think Thor is not nearly as good anymore, but in a weird way, I think he's like good at different stages in the game now because of the nerf to the armory, where now everything, it's not a nerf technically. I mean, it is a nerf overall. It's minus 50% speed for armory upgrades in the archaic age, which completely changes the build order in the archaic age. But now he gets 50% faster armory upgrades coming through every single age. So when you're in the mythic age, you're actually getting armory upgrades twice as fast. So that's pretty good. They also fixed the bug where his gold mine wouldn't be gathered from faster. So when the game initially came out, the Dorver mine was supposed to be like, you were supposed to gather gold faster every single age you advance. So they fixed that. So now the Dorver mine is really, really good in the mythic age. You get like 55% faster gold, which is insane. So I think that's really, really strong. I'm glad they fixed that. So that's a big buff to Thor. However, I still think overall in this patch, he's been nerfed. I think he's better late game now because of like what I just said about the Dorver mine, but he's not nearly as good in that mid game, which is where most games end. So I think he's going to be like at the top of B tier. I think the nerf was a little too much. Like they increased the armory cost. They made it so the dwarves come out a lot slower. It's a huge nerf when you consider like Loki hasn't been touched at all and he was doing just as fine as Thor in the previous patch in many matchups. So it's kind of a confusing one. I think Loki is just significantly better Norse than Thor. So I think Thor is actually the third worst god right now for Norse. I might be wrong about that. I haven't played enough games against Thor or as him in this patch, but I still think the nerf was a little much. He's really good late game though, which is cool. But yeah, this is my tier list. I think I'm pretty happy with this. I think I'm pretty happy with this. Chat, you guys have any thoughts on this? What's wrong about this tier list? I think it's pretty good. I think Greek sucks right now. Greek is like down bottom 4. How you rate Set is really sauce. I don't even see you playing Set or he's play against Set at all recently. Yeah, so I put him in the middle. Like, I don't think he's super insane. I don't think he's really bad either. I've seen Boyd play a lot of Set, and I think Set is still very strong in some matchups, especially against like Norse. But I think he struggles against other Egyptians. I think he struggles against... I think he's not very good against Greeks either. I don't think Freyr is D tier. I mean, you can win games with him. I'd move Freyr to C tier since there's a super high skill ceiling to make it work, but isn't that actually that weak? So here's the issue. I'm including both how easy it is to use the god and also their potential, right? Gaia is super easy to use, where like most beginners come in and play as Gaia. Like that's just a fact. It's a tutorial civ. It's like joke, but it literally is a tutorial civ. You have less villagers to manage. Your buffs are basically just all eco, so you just spam a couple upgrades and then boom, you're utilizing Gaia to maximum efficiency in many ways, right? So it's super easy to play. Compare that to Freyr. Freyr's probably the hardest god to play in the game. Freyr is super hard. It's super unforgiving. You make any small mistakes, you're screwed. If you don't have enough production, you're screwed. I've played many games as Freyr, and I just couldn't make it work. I know at very, very tippy top level, maybe you can make him be somewhat decent, but I still think it's super, super hard to play Freyr. And Gaia is way easier to play, and in my opinion, more rewarding to play. And you get so much benefit from playing Gaia compared to Freyr. I think Gaia just scales way stronger than almost every guy in the game. It's just you get those equal upgrades insanely early, and it's so hard to stop. It's a snowball effect of economy basically with Gaia. So, and then you get those super crazy cheap Contherius when your economy is already insane. So you can just crap out like endless waves of Contherius and never have a problem with your economy. Yeah, but this is my tier list. I think Gaia should be nerfed, definitely. And I think some elements maybe of Raw should be nerfed, but I don't know. I think Raw is a lot harder to play than Gaia, so that's why I don't have as big as problem with Raw. Raw is so much harder to play in so many different ways. But yeah, I don't think it's a skill ceiling. I think it's just understanding you're weak early in the game with Freyr. Like, what is the skill ceiling? Build more buildings. Other than that, he's a normal Norse god. I wouldn't say he's normal Norse god. Every other Norse god has so many better benefits. You have Thor with the armory upgrades. You have Odin with Great Hall units. You have Loki with myth units. Freyr just has like kind of nothing. Like he's kind of just bad at everything. He just gets upgrades cheaper, and then like most games I see people will win with Freyr, they're just abusing the crap out of rock giants. They just spam rock giants, and I love rock giants. They're super cool, but Freyr I think is way too weak right now. I think they should increase the speed at which the texts come through. Maybe 125% longer to research instead of 150. 150 seems way too long. You need so many damn buildings because so many of your buildings just get clogged up with text coming through. It takes so long for anything to come through. Like if you're playing Freyr, it's like mandatory to have like 3 or 4 armories, and then like Great Halls, you need like 5 or 6. Like you need so many damn buildings, and that's a huge disadvantage. You have to spend so much wood on making so many buildings just so you can get techs out at a relatively decent time. And that's a huge problem with Freyr right now. But yeah. Freyr would be bad if rock giants weren't very strong. They kind of hard carry. I completely agree. Yeah, I don't disagree. The research time debuff is rough. Yeah. I think the right word for Freyr is he requires patience. I think he requires patience and almost like perfection in many ways, bro. Like you have to play him perfect in order to utilize his advantages. Super hard to play. 75 seconds for medium upgrades is a lot. Yeah, that's so long, man. But yeah, I think that's my tier list. I'm pretty happy with this. If you guys enjoyed the video on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, and if you're on Twitch, make sure to follow, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.